Hello, and today's date is the 8th of July 2024. And as you can see, I've invested in a little speaker here after complaints from my last video in the Scottish Highlands. Today I'm 700 mile away on the Norfolk Broads, as you can see, very flat. And obviously this is where I live. And I'm just doing this video today because recently, in the last 2 or 3 months, I've managed to get back on the bike, try and overcome my fear of cycling. But in particular, as you can see, I've got this very old Peugeot 1970s bike that's been restored. And ironically, I'd been watching some videos, and I'll put the link. It's called Bike Speeds. It's a very popular YouTube channel of a man who basically people take their bikes to him and he restores them. And it just turns out this chap only lived 10 miles from me, and he'd been doing some videos, ironically, about his own injury coming off a bike, and he literally just packed up cycling. And ironically, he'd got the same bike as me, an old Peugeot bike, which has actually got him back into cycling. And I'd taken the bike to him to get it restored, and we were talking about the concept of fear and cycling, and you know, my particular story. And in particular, I was mentioning the work of Dr. Schubner in America, and his opinion that repressed emotions, fear as well, possibly causes pain to become chronic. And this chap on this YouTube channel had overcome this fear, and he's now back, almost, not quite, to the actual cycle rides that he was used to. And I'd been told by Dr. Schubner to get rid of my disabled bike and get back on my bike. Now, unfortunately, my original bike I do have, but I don't have with me. My father I gave it to my father. He lives the other side of the country from me, and so I'd got this old bike purely because it was a way of, how can I explain it? Looking at the vintage, the history of bikes, I found quite pleasing, learning about all the different makes, especially some of the English makes of bicycles. Yeah, I mean, these bikes were hand built, and in particular, one particular man, his name was Major Nichols. He passed away, I think, well, just over 10 years ago now, more. And this was prior to the internet days. People would go to him in Birmingham in the Midlands, and he'd build you a bike, and using steel tubes. And there's several thousand of them still exist today. And when people would go in to him and he'd build the bike, and they'd say to him, "Oh, do you think I should get a bike speedometer? And I need one of these, and I need this gizmo." We'd say, "Stuff that, just get on that bike and just cycle." You know, he would basically tell them they were devoting too much time to all these things around cycling when they need to just get out there and cycle. And that's something I think that we've actually lost as a society, be it running or any sport really, even golf. There's so much science involved, whereas historically they just got a golf club, got on a bike, or even picked up a baseball bat, you know, for those that play baseball in America, and they wouldn't have given it much thought in terms of the science and this, that, and the other. They just enjoyed what they were doing, whereas now that's not the case at all. Apologies for that, but all in a space of a minute, I had to stop the video because I had 2 combine harvesters, a car pull up next to me, a jogger stop next to me, and even a cyclist get off his bike and stop next to me, all after cycling for 5 miles and seeing nothing. Talk about the law of synchronicity. If anyone's got an answer as to why that happens, please let me know. So yeah, as I was saying, Major Nichols was a chap in Birmingham, West Midlands, who used to build bikes, hand built, from the 1940s up until about the year 2000. And people would go into him just by his reputation alone in the UK. And he was very, very much a matter of fact. And as the years went by, especially in the 80s, the 90s, and people went to him with all these gizmos, and they would say things to him like, "Oh, do you think I need a speedometer on my bike to measure how fast I'm going?" And he would literally just say to him, "Get on the bloody bike and just cycle. What's wrong with you, lad?" Because historically people didn't have all these gizmos, etc. They just got on a bike, cycled, picked up a tennis racket and just hit a ball, or just go to the gym and lift weights. There wasn't all this science, and I think historically you don't really see you don't see potential neuralgia mentioned, for example, in the 1930s. You don't see in weightlifting all the injuries that people had historically. Yes, people had some more minor stuff would happen. Most commonly, they'd probably fall off a bike and injure themselves, or for example, with tennis, for example, maybe they get whacked by the bat accidentally or something. But no, you didn't see all the things that you see now. And one of the things that I've learned from my past is, for example, I tried weightlifting many years ago, and it's now obvious to me that when I was lifting the weights, basically, I was stressed and my muscles were tense. So I was going into an environment, putting my body through something with my body tense, purely because of the stress I had in my body. And I think that's got a lot to be said, to be honest. If you look at, say, Donald Trump, for example, typically you would think an overstressed man, but he doesn't come across as overstressed, and he's probably not overweight, but he's in generally good health for his age. I think he's 79 now, and he probably gets on the treadmill now and again, does a bit of jogging, plays a bit of tennis, etc. But he doesn't have the issues. Apologies now, I just got a car coming behind me. So no, it's got a lot to be said, to be honest. And this is something I was trying to talk about when I was in the Highlands 2 months ago now, and trying to get across. Hopefully you can hear me a lot better now with this mic. So yeah, talking about the tension myositis syndrome with the tight muscles, which according to Dr. Sarno, Dr. Schubner, they're caused by repressed emotions, or you can look up the work of Dan Buglio, who talks about more of a fear-based causing these symptoms. There is a YouTube channel actually, which I'd been watching even prior to doing the DCT stuff. It's called Kenny G. If you look up Kenny G, spelled Kenny G for golf, and then if you put in Canadian Health Care or Canadian Health Sucks or Healthcare Sucks, you'll bring him up. And this is a chap who'd been talking for several years of his potential neuralgia symptoms, and now he's talking about tension myositis syndrome, probably in the last 6 months or more. And he's recently done an update, and he's starting to see improvements in his body, overcoming that fear and getting on with his life for the first time. And I see people all the time who've got debilitating back pain, for instance. And I think as a species, the human species would have gone extinct long ago if everyone had debilitating back pain, or if everyone, the amount of people have got nausea, the amount of people have got carpal tunnel, etc., etc., and why some people develop this and yet there's others who don't. For example, Evel Knievel would fall off his bike regularly, be hospitalised, but then get back on the bike, his motorbike, and be back at it again. So there's got a lot to be said for that. And I was recently watching a UK, it's called New Lives in the Wild, Ben Fogle. Now, there was a particular episode. Now, it's got nothing to do with TMS, the series. It's about people that start a new life in the wild from busy lifestyles. But there was one particular lady in the United States who had developed debilitating pain. She'd become wheelchair dependent to her husband and took to the road in a small van. He's probably a couple of years old, this particular program. And Ben Fogel was like looking at her and saying, well, hang on a minute, you were in a wheelchair and now you're walking? And he just couldn't believe it. And apparently she did the opposite of basically what her brain was telling her, took up dancing and tried to overcome the pain that she had in her body. And these symptoms slowly, she said, switched off. And she said she's now fine. And this was somebody that had many years of being in a wheelchair. Again, I can't remember which episode it was. You'd have to look it up. Ben Fogel, New Lives in the Wild. But it was. I mean, if I can find the clip, I'll put it on here. But it was quite extraordinary. I'm going to leave it there because I'm currently doing an 11-mile bike ride, overcoming my fear, getting back on the bike. But I will do some more updates. And thank you for supporting me and watching this YouTube channel. Thank you.